Welcome back once again, team, to the High Performance Human podcast. Andy, your host. Today, I have a colleague, a counterpart, a friend in the real estate space and beyond, and a friend in life, that is for sure. And aside from anything else, he is a damn good bloke, both as a professional and as a person. Matt Scafidi is an accomplished professional in the real estate space, the owner, founder of the Abode Advocacy Group, dealing with buyer advocacy and vendor advocacy within the real estate space, helping people buy and sell properties. But he's had a tremendously successful career as a sales agent, as an auctioneer, as a director, as a leader. And he's gone through a heck of a lot of things, both in his business life and personal life, which means that he's got a really, really good overview, a really good perception of what high performance looks like at various different points in people's lives. He's gone through it all. He's been and done it all, and he's very much alive to live to tell the tale. And he's a really, really ripper bloke as well. Matt, thank you so much for joining me on the High Performance Human podcast. How are you, sir?
Thanks, Andy. Wow, what an intro. Thank you. Really well, mate. It's the sun's shining today here in Melbourne, and that we don't get all the time. So no, it's really good, and life's been really good. It's I'm in a good space, which is good.
Excellent, my man. Excellent. Now, team, before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, there's two questions that we ask every single person that comes on as a guest of our lovely little show. I personally believe that high performance is all around four key elements, being success, influence, connection, and happiness. But first things first, Matt, give us a bit of an elevator pitch. Give us a spiel on who you are and how you've got to this point.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Got into real estate at a late age, about 36, and been in that space for about 15 odd years. Started a business at Noel Jones Mitcham back in 2013 on my own with a couple of business partners there. That grew exponentially really quickly, and was a great business to be in and be part of, but also a very fun business to be a part of. Merged that business with Jealous Craig 8 years on, and then from there I've founded the Abode Advocacy Group with my partner Dion, and we've been in it now for just on 13 months, and helping, as you said earlier, helping buyers to buy and sellers to sell, and guiding them through that process, helping them to avoid mistakes, saving them time, saving them money. And we're having a hell of a lot of fun, and that's the important part. So that's me in a nutshell.
And I don't know if you noticed there, team, but he said the word fun more than once. So as you can see, Matt's definition of high performance. I'm going to ask you what your definition is in a second, man. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, team, although Matt is a tremendously corporate sort of looking and in terms of how he presents himself, he's very high-end corporate sort of person. He very much has the human part down pat, and he's got that very much front and center in his mind. So Matt, this question we ask everybody is that, like I said, my definition of a high performance human includes those four elements that I mentioned before. You tell me, my man, what's your definition of a high performance human?
Well, to be honest, Andy, I think that, to be completely frank, I missed the fourth one for quite a long time, the happy part. And sometimes you're in a role, you're in a business, and you're not quite sure what's not there. And I think that for some period there, the happiness was the issue. And, I think, in real estate, a lot of people make a lot of money, make a lot of wealth and connections and all that sort of thing. But I think since getting into the advocacy side of things, I've actually improved as a human being in connecting with people on a one-on-one level, thinking about them more than thinking about myself. And we all start out in business a little bit selfishly, I think. And you've got those those elements over your life where, you know, start out and you're just looking to sort of put shelter over your head and food on the table and everything else. And then you move on and you probably get a little bit ahead of yourself for a little while. And then you get to a point where I feel that I'm at now where ultimately I'm happiest when I'm helping other people, whether that be clients or whether that be colleagues, to grow, to expand, to be better. And as I said earlier, to be having fun whilst doing it. You mentioned corporate. I came from a corporate background, 36. I got into real estate. Before that, it was all corporate, and I didn't play the corporate game all that well. And, if I could go back and speak to my 20-something self now, I'd give myself a fair bit of advice on perhaps not telling everybody everything that I was thinking all the time. My diplomacy probably was lacking a little bit at that time, but I touched on the business that we started in Mitcham in 2013, and we had a really, really good business there for 5 or 6 odd years, and then we had a bit of a rough patch because we grew probably too quickly, and we let a few things go that we wouldn't have tolerated or put up with when we first began. And I think that that's sort of where a lot of people get to, in the sense of they think that we've got to put bums on seats and we've got to be building for the future, but perhaps not going to those extra lengths to make sure that the bums that are going in those seats are good humans, and that they're going to, I suppose, follow the values and the ethics and everything else that you would expect them to do. And you can't just expect people to do that. You've got to make sure that you go looking, remain curious, and making sure that, firstly, you're putting on good people. A boss of mine years ago in packaging used to say to me that skills you can teach, attitude you can't. And that's what we sort of go looking for now. And as I mentioned off air, we're sort of looking at perhaps putting somebody on at the moment, and it's all about the attitude for us. It's, I said in an interview today, I said that, if you came to us and you were writing massive business and everything else, but you came in and said you wanted to run it all your own way, and it's just my way, and I'm just going to work by myself, then we'd probably still say no. So, money's not everything, and that's probably what my journey to here at 51. That's what I've learned. I've learned that my wife always says that this is no dress rehearsal. We get one shot, and luckily I've had a couple of little changes in my life. Yes, everyone hits some hurdles. I'm not going to harp on that, but it's about how you come back from those and how you look inwards as well, and not just outwards to lay blame.
There's a whole load to unpack there, though. I mean, the first things first, you have, from my knowledge of you, Matt, I think you've very much been one to really learn from the scars of battle that you've earned over your journey, whether it is in the corporate landscape or in business ownership, or building that business and hitting the hurdles and whatnot. And you've always been one to be very effacing to the challenges that you've experienced and making sure that you've evolved through them. Right? And I really, really like that. It's one of the big things that I'm always going to have so much respect for you for. When it comes to your perception, your ideals of what high performance looks like and feels like, I'm sure that because you've gone from corporate to business ownership to now really following a passion and making money off that, right? Tell me, from that corporate Matt to now Matt, how has high performance changed in your opinion, in your viewership? Like, what did you see high performance being back then to how you see it now?
Yeah, good question. High performance, for me, when I first got into the real estate space, was to write the most GCI that you could, to deal with as many clients as you possibly could, and to get them in and get them sold. And that was high performance. It was about making sure that you had your day set, you knew exactly what you were going to do. My diary is still that way, but my diary now allows for a lot more flexibility as well. And I used to be quite rigid in the way that I went about things. And to a lot of people, that rigidness came across as arrogance. And I can't change people's perception of me. And that's one thing that I've learned. And one of my favorite sayings in life is the first time's a lesson, the second time's a mistake. So if you don't take those lessons on board, and one thing that I see in the corporate world and the real estate world is a lot of finger pointing from people when things go wrong. If somebody leaves someone's business, for example, an employee walks out the door, they lay blame with that employee, or they lay blame with the person that was poaching that person, or whatever it may be. They don't look inwards to see, well, what could we have done to hold on to that person? So high performance has changed dramatically over the journey for me. High performance now is having a really, really good balance of having a business that allows me to service clients, but to mentor Dion as well, and to bring him up, and his that role that we have and that relationship that we have now is not one of senior and junior. It's equal. And that's shifted and that's changed. Yes, he's 23 and I'm 51, but I learn just as much from him as he learns from me, and we share that. And I think that probably going back a few years, it would have been my way or the highway, and I'll admit that freely. And whereas now we sit down and we talk things through, and I take on his sort of thoughts, he takes on mine, and we come up with a solution that's going to work. And I think that when you've got an inclusive sort of mindset, you still want to continue to learn and to do things like that. Well, it's much more high performing, because you've got Dion's about to go off and have his wedding shortly, and he'll go off for 2 weeks, and his business will be looked after, because that's the way we've structured our business, that we've got a work life, but we've also got a home life, and we want to be able to make sure that we can do both things. So it's so different now, in the sense of any client that we deal with, they don't care whether they hear from me or whether they hear from Dion. Whereas in the past, I don't know whether it was a client's perception or perhaps a perception built by real estate agents, that it's them and they're the hero of the show. But now I can tell you that any client we've got on the books, if Dion rang them right now, they would take his advice just as well as they'd take mine, and vice versa. And I think that high performing wise, it's that for me now is that we've got that inclusiveness, we've got that learning from one another, we've got really a business based on high values and ethics, and from there we attract such good clients. We haven't had a bad client in the whole time that we've been open, and that is a testament, I think, to you attract what you put out. And and that's where I feel that, yes, I feel at the best of my game that I've been at the moment.
How you mentioned this in your opening sort of monologue, and you've mentioned it again there. There's a theme that I'm picking up in terms of your evolution as a human and as a professional, where you've gone from a mindset of solidarity to a very much a collective, connected, inclusive mindset. Like you mentioned there, like you have an inclusive mindset when it comes to how you work with Dion now and whatnot, as opposed to back in the day when it was your way or the highway. Do you feel that to truly be a high performing human, you need to have that inclusiveness, that willingness to share your journey with others and have them share their journey with you? Do you feel that that's actually become a really critical part of you and of your perception of high performance now?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, before it was quite lonely. You know, and there's been books and everything written and what's spoken about the business is a lonely place, right? And it can very much be that way. But when you include people and bring people along for the ride, it's so much more satisfying because you know you can have a great win by yourself and you high five yourself, sort of thing. Whereas if you have a great win with a team, and you see someone that's growing within that team and getting to a point where, you know, the great thing about Dion now with our buying clients is that nobody sees age with him as a barrier. They see his energy, they see his professionalism, they see that he knows what he's talking about. Whereas in the real estate space, when someone's selling their $2 or $3 million home, they're probably going to want somebody a little bit more senior, and that's sort of the way that it's structured and set up. Whereas here, you know, Dion does amazing work with especially first home buyers and all those sort of things because he's on their wavelength and can understand. So the shift for him into this business has been phenomenal, and it's been great to watch. And I'll admit, I probably didn't get as much enjoyment out of seeing others do well as I do now, and that's my competitors, and that's everything now. Like it's a really collective industry that I'm in now, and you know, we'll reach out to one another to perhaps help bid on a property, or if we've got a conflict somewhere, we might ask someone else for their help. I had a colleague call me recently. She was stuck in Bali and couldn't get over for a property that was being auctioned on the Friday. It was supposed to be Saturday. It was brought forward. She rang me, helped her out, got it done, and that's the way it works. Could you imagine ABC Real Estate ringing XYZ Real Estate and saying, hey, can you come and call this auction for us on the weekend, and we'll get back to being competitors on Monday? It just wouldn't happen. So, you know, I think that you want to be in the space that I suppose mirrors the way you feel and the way you want to be, and that's where I think that I've found myself in over the last 13 months. And you know, I've got more passion and more fire than I've had in many years. And it's not, as I said before, it's not about making the most money, doing the most deals, all that sort of thing. It's about having clients that become, I'm not going to say friends, because we're still client and supplier as such, but we're much closer than we would have ever been before. And you know, and that's because we go on a bit of a journey together. And as we say, our tagline is "We're on your side." And for the first time ever, that's exactly how I feel. I feel that we're on their side the whole way through, and they tell us everything, which is great.
It's a fascinating sort of evolution that you've been on in I say relatively short space of time, but you've had so much go on. I'm happy to mention to the listeners that Matt and I, we share a bond over our own journeys with in the mental health space, and we both very much advocates of 100 Words Mate to Make, which is a mental health charity based in Melbourne. Craig Turton and the team there doing incredible things for a lot of people. And it was really that bonded Matt and I from a friendship point of view. Was Matt doing an event on behalf of 100 Words and hosting an event for 100 Words, and he and I shared the stage and called a charity auction together.
Yep.
And we've bonded since then, and we've both been there for each other since then as well. Actually, we've both had some interesting challenges and whatnot. Matt, I wanted to, without going into you know, the real nitty gritty details, how much, so you've faced some real, you know, back to the wall challenges, both either publicly or internally from your own mental health point of view and what have you. How do you feel that you would have ever ended up getting to this point that you're at now without facing the level of adversity that you faced over the last 2-3 years?
Yeah, I've quoted this man quite a bit. over the last 2 years or so. Sometimes good things come badly wrapped, and that's pretty much sums up, the period in my life 2 years ago. I think that, without a very close circle around me, being family, being friends, etc., things could have gone in a completely different way. And I was we were just talking, Dion and I, this morning actually, and my wife Tanya suggested to me, when all that was going on, when I was ready to walk away, I was walking away from real estate, never to do real estate ever again. And she said to me, have you thought about advocacy? I think that would suit what you're good at, and it wouldn't throw away the 15 years that you've given it, and you could really help people. And I thought about that, and then I caught up with Dion pretty much the next day, I think, and he actually had the same idea for me. And I thought, okay, well, here's two people in my very close circle that have given me the same thoughts. So, to be honest, building this business probably helped me immensely. What do they say? The comeback's bigger than the setback, or whatever they say. And that's not about, when I was doing that, I could have put it into a negative spin on it and said, oh, I'm going to prove to these people, I'm going to get back, I'm going to, it's a revenge thing or whatever. But I probably would have, probably 4 or 5 or 6 years earlier, I probably would have gone that way. And this time round though, I thought, no, I need to do this for me. I need to do this for me. I need to do this for my family. And I need to do it from a place of calm, and, and not with any other agenda at all. And that's what I've done. And that's, it seems a bit cheesy, but it's brought me peace doing it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you found that the after the it's one of, again, with so many cliched lines that come with this sort of territory, right? But they say that it's always the darkest before the dawn, and
well, it's a Batman quote, mate. So you can always quote Batman.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I had to get it in there. I had to get it in there. By the way, team, Matt for a long time he was known as Batman, and because you never see him and Batman in the same place. To be fair,
never be seen. No,
never be seen in the same place. That makes you think, right? Anyway, so what I was going to mention about that is you can. I don't think peace is cheesy. I think that a lot of us go through so much turmoil, and I think my favorite quote probably comes from Churchill when he says, if you walk into a storm, keep walking, because you can, and basically mention you can either stand and really cop it for the whole extent, or you can keep walking, because eventually you'll get out the other side. And this is where Matt really could have gone down and out, but the right people have reached out to him, his wife Dion and some close people, and have really helped him get through that patch. And now, as you can see, team, high performance for Matt is around fun, it's around peace, it's around doing what you genuinely feel you love to do. And I think one thing that you mentioned before that I really want to highlight is the fact that you've aligned in a space, in an industry, or in a part of an industry that aligns with you. And I think that for a lot of people that are trying to search for high performance in their lives, because obviously, ultimately, gang, the P&L needs to be answered to. Money, it does make the world go round, and we can't ignore that, right? We can be all all knowing and all fanciful and whatnot, and suggest that it's not all about money, but at the same time, we need to make money in order to have choices. And what Matt's done, which I really like, and I think this is what a lesson that a lot of us could learn, is that unless we are in an environment, in a workspace, in an industry that aligns with who we are not likely to be in an environment that's going to allow us to thrive in a high performing way. And Matt, don't get me wrong, Matt was performing tremendously well, especially like with the real estate business with Noel Jones, Joe's great, he's all of that. Was going tremendously well. I mean, almost too well, really, if you look at it back in the, if you look back on it. But the fact that he's now found peace, I think that is a tremendous contributor towards high performance. Is peace. He's having an internal peace. You're always going to have chaotic stuff go on in the world, but if you've got an internal peace, then you'll always have a level of calm. And that was the other word that you used, was calm. And I think that is a tremendous thing that we can all take from what you just mentioned there. Now, Matt, moving forward, if we're to project into the future, and you've learned a tremendous amount about yourself, about the way that you do business, about what your inclusive mindset that you have now, that you've adopted truly. Now you've come to understand that there has been an evolution, and that maybe what you were doing back then is not serving you now. If we're to look forward, if we're to move to the next phase now, where do you feel you need to improve, or where would you like to improve in whatever facet, whether it's personal, professional, whatever, in order to make you feel that you are sort of performing to a higher level again?
Yeah, that's a good, hard question. I think that things always come back to family, to be honest, and you always want to be the best husband, the best father that you can be. And I think that, with the shift that I've had over the past few years, like when I first got into real estate, Tanya pretty much brought up our girls, right? And we all know or have been people like that in our times, and for the last 6 or 7 years, I've dropped the girls off, I've picked the girls up from school, I've taken them the guitar, I've done all those things, and that I never get bored of. I might be grumpy one day and tell them they don't appreciate, me going up and down the White Horse Road 4 times a day to suit them. But, I think it's about having things in balance and aligned. And there's no point flying and doing really, really well at work and letting your relationships at home slide, and you end up sort of alone and unhappy in your personal life. I think they've got to run in alignment, and it's really, really important. And I know that you've had your struggles and stuff as well, and I've reached out to you in those moments because I actually know I put myself in your shoes, and I think now I'm in a much better space to be able to do that and go, listen, Andy's been a little bit quiet on social or whatever, I might just reach out. I think every time I have, there's been something that you've shared with me. And I think that, it's high performing it's a word that gets thrown around, but, you need to be high performing in everything you do. You need to be high performing in your health, in training, in learning more about what it is you're doing in your business, your family life, your friends, relationships there. I know that, at times I put on a heap of weight. I wasn't speaking to anyone. I was just working. I probably wasn't having good relationships with my wife and with my kids either. And you sit there and go, all the money in the world will never get back what you'd lose if you didn't put time into that. So I think it's really, really important to what COVID taught me coming out the other side of that was that there was a lot of time wasted every single week. And we'll use the real estate space as an example. Mondays we do callbacks. So we're in the office. We've got to be doing callbacks. Tuesday we've got our sales meeting. That might go. It's scheduled for an hour. Probably goes for 2.5 hours and bores the tears out of everybody. Right. Then Wednesday we're doing our second round callbacks and what have you, and getting back to people, getting vendor reports out to them, and all those sort of things. And then on Thursday we're back to back open for inspections all day. So we're flat out. We hardly eat. We don't talk to anyone. Don't return any calls. We can't do anything for our family on that day. Friday, we might have a half day off or a full day off, or work the whole day. Then Saturday, we're back to back with auctions and opens and everything else as well. We get to Sunday, we collapse. We have no real time for our family because we're exhausted from the week that we've just had. And then we do it all again come Monday. Right? Now, what do we do now? We've got an office space here in Blackburn. Are we expected to be in at 9 o'clock and stay till 5:30? And I'd speak to a lot of agents that are expected to do that. No, we are not. If you feel you want to work from home, work from home. If you feel you want to work from the office, work from the office. If you've got a meeting here, obviously you're going to need to be here. But there is no set times. There is no set places. And, you know, we waste pre-COVID, a lot of people wasted a lot of time. Post-COVID, a lot of people are still wasting a lot of time. They've fallen back into bad habits. And, you know, I work probably, you know, what a 40-hour week is just sort of the general. I wouldn't work any more than 40 now. And I have very few late night appointments, none for that matter, actually. If, you know, latest appointment I've ever had, I think in the last 13 months, it was probably 6 o'clock. So I'm home at a reasonable hour. I'm seeing my kids. I'm seeing my wife. So, you know, you can get things achieved and done if you've got really good processes in place and you communicate really, really well with people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it sounds simple, but I know for a lot of people that actually implementing processes is a really hard thing in their mental space to actually do and achieve. But I'm fortunate in the sense that I've always been able to see how implementing a process would affect positively and negatively the people in the chain along. And I've been able to put those things in place, and that's what we've done here. Our business is run on this iPad that I'm on now, my mobile phone. That's all that I've got a document tray, and that's really about it on my desk. Dion's the same. We've got no Wi-Fi at the office. There's no need for Wi-Fi. We run so much simpler these days, so much simpler. I don't take my iPad home. It stays at work because when I'm at work, I work. When I'm at home, I'm at home. So it's a long answer, but that's the answer.
It is, and let's just break that down. Let's just break that down for a minute. I think the first thing that screamed out to me was the need for simplicity. I think is the first one there that really sung out to me. I think the next one is you have been a process person for your whole career and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think what a lot of us can take from that is the fact that you're always looking to see how you can make your process that little bit better, right? Or you can make it that little bit more straightforward, which is even more of an incentive to keep reviewing and what have you. I think one of the hazards that high performing humans have, one of the sort of pitfalls that they can fall into, is assume that they've got it licked. And I think it's one of those ones, as soon as you feel comfortable with all the processes and whatnot that you have, maybe that's an indicator that you perhaps need to, now you've got a level of comfort, hey?
A review is needed. Yeah.
For a bit of a review, right? Geez, okay, I'm feeling a bit comfortable here. Maybe we need to, because comfort breeds, it breeds that sense of just not needing to have your finger on the pulse the entire time, right? It brings a level of ambivalence to what it is that you are doing, because you think, oh, I've got it sorted, it's comfortable, it's easy, and what have you.
Yeah.
That is a real quick trait to end up falling on your ass. So I think that's another thing that Matt's pointed out there. I think it's easy to talk about balance, right? But note how Matt has mentioned it on more than one occasion. He hasn't talked about work-life balance. He's talked about balance holistically.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is probably the biggest point that we really need to highlight out of this conversation. Work-life balance it's a fallacy. You know, if you have work and life, if you've tried to balance work and life, you end up pitting work against life, which ends up having you resent one or the other or both.
Yeah.
What Matt's talking about is balance in a total sum. He knows that he needs to spend a part of his balance in work, and he needs to dedicate that part of his pie to work. But then he also needs to know that part of that balance is making sure that there's enough of the pie left to be with family. And I think that for me is probably one of the golden nuggets to come out of this conversation, is that work-life balance leads you down a garden path of just really resenting either what you do or who you are, or both. When you've got balance, when you talk about balance as a whole, it allows you to take things in measure according to what you need in your life at that point. And that's what I really, really like about how Matt articulated what he's going to really be focusing on moving forward in order to maintain and improve his high performance as a dad, as a husband, as a business owner, as a friend, all of those sorts of things. So, Matt, I really, really appreciate you mentioning there that I am always going to be looking for greater levels of balance within my life. And that has got a work component. It has got a life component, and they should work in harmony, not be working in opposite forces against each other. I love that, and I think that is a huge contributor towards success in a high performance sense holistically. Because I think the point that Matt made, which I think is rather pertinent towards a lot of people, is that high performance stereotypically involves sacrifice, and high performance involves the needing to be so hell-bent on one area of your life, it's to the detriment of all the other bits, because you want to be high performing in that one thing. Whereas to be a high performance human requires that holistic balance viewpoint, I believe, and Matt and I have had numerous conversations about this. So Matt, I love the fact that that's what you're focusing on moving forward, and you are an embodiment of someone who has made the mistakes or has taken lessons from situations where you've ended up on the wrong side. And I love that. Now I ask, I'm conscious that you haven't used the word regret. Is there anything in your past? You mentioned that you'd go back to your 20-something year old self and tell him to shut his mouth every now and then. But is there anything along your journey that you genuinely look back on and sort of wince a little bit?
It's interesting, Andy. I was doing some updates on my LinkedIn profile last night, and adding a few things and what have you. And LinkedIn's a really cool tool because it actually it's your resume, really, at the end of the day, in your professional life. And regret, I've been asked the question a fair bit, normally in private conversations, when things have gone wrong and what have you. And I can honestly say, hand on heart, that I don't regret anything that I've done, because everything that I've done's led me to here. And, it's like there's sliding door moments in life, and you can go one way, you can go the other. And, it's really interesting that, a lot of people I think a lot of the time people say the word regret because they went through some stuff. And it's like, well, guess what? We're going to go through stuff in life as humans. Simple as that. But you got to, as I said earlier, my favorite quote is that, first time's a lesson, the second time's a mistake. If I continued to make mistakes, like not taking the lesson and continued to do the same thing over and over, I would have regrets. But, and I'm not saying I've got it licked or got it perfect, but all I'm saying is that I don't really have many regrets in life, let alone in my professional life. I'm happy, really, really happy where I am right now. And the only way that I got here was the path that I traveled. So, and I'll never know whether there was a right or a wrong way. It's sort of like that time where as an agent, you sell a property and you always wonder, did the buyer have more money and all those sort of things? Well, guess what? It doesn't matter, because they might not have. You might have gotten to the max, but that's you've conducted yourself in the best possible way, and that's all you can really do. So regret for me, it doesn't really come into the way I think about things, because I think once you start thinking about regret, you're laying blame, and once you start laying blame, you're not looking inwards and saying, well, what could I have done? What can I do? What can I make sure I don't do in the future? And that's all that I ever do. When things happen that are really good, I say, well, Josh Fegan taught me a long time ago, what did we do really well? What can we improve upon, and what do we need to stop doing moving forward? And it's a really simple self-analysis. Every single time something goes well, you should do that. And every single time something goes poorly, you should do the same thing as well. But a lot of people only focus on the negative at times. And I try not to do that. And going back to balance before, I think the epitome of balance to me is you look at Roger Federer, happy husband, happy dad to twins, had a massive career, probably the best of all time, definitely at the moment. And I feel that if you spoke to him, he'd tell you that he had balance in his whole life. So, yeah.
I love it. What a great way to bring the show to a head. Look, Matt, I can't thank you enough, man. Not just for this show, but for your mateship over the last few years. It's been tremendously valuable to me, and I know that I'm not the only one to have benefited from your mateship as well. And I think that your switch in your evolution in mentality to being one of an inclusive mindset has certainly benefited those around you, and I'm absolutely one of those. Look, team, if you don't follow Matt or the advocacy or Abode Advocacy Group, make sure you do. We'll put the links into the show notes, so make sure that you give them a follow and keep up with what they are up to, because Matt's ethos and Dion's ethos is certainly shining through everything that they do and represent as a business, and it's a really nice example of what you can do if you are aligned internally with your external. Matt Scafidi, thank you so much for your time, my man. And please, we got to make sure that we'll have you on this show again sometime down the track.
And good luck to the Pies on Saturday, mate.
Yes, grand final. For those of you who are listening, yes, this is grand final week. So fingers crossed. For those of us that have false teeth, we end up with a win. So team, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Enjoy yourselves. Take care, team.
Thanks, mate.